Hello, welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. Happy African History Month and happy Malcolm X Day. That's right, today is the anniversary of Malcolm X's assassination, and Malcolm X being one of my personal heroes. This is, it's a special day for me, and clearly for many others. Malcolm X was an amazing individual, amazing man, and he had such a profound effect upon so many people's lives. I just want to talk about him briefly. So from his childhood, when he was born, Malcolm Little, and it was interesting to note that his father was a follower of Marcus Garvey. So that strength, that fire that you see in Malcolm X was part of a reflection and a foundation that was instilled upon him, in him as a child. Because his father was, one of the things that really makes Malcolm X so impressive is his unapologetic blackness. He wasn't going to apologize for being a black man, and he wasn't going to try to downplay his individuality, his needs to satisfy white supremacists. That's one of the things that was so great about him, especially in his day and age when, the consequences were so heavy for somebody who wasn't a black man, who wasn't willing to stay in their place. But the interesting thing is his father had that same unapologetic blackness, and he was murdered for it, because his father was even in a worse time when the Klan can just kill you and everybody just looked the other way. His father was going around telling other black people to be proud of their blackness, not to just keep their heads down, to stand up. And, the white supremacists caught wind of what he was doing and said, "We've got to kill him." And so once he was murdered, it really had took a toll on his mother. Once Malcolm Little's father was murdered, it had a toll on Malcolm's mother, because she broke down. She had, several kids to take care of, and she was left by herself to do it. Plus, the insurance company didn't want to pay out, for her husband's insurance, because they claimed he committed suicide by bashing his head into the ground and then lying down in front of a train. So Malcolm, that actually leads me to an event that happened in Malcolm's life when he was in school, and one of his teachers asks the question, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And he says, "I want to be a lawyer." And his teacher says, "Well, you're smart, for a little black kid, but lawyer is not a realistic goal for a Negro. Why don't maybe you could be a carpenter or something. You're good with your hands and people like you." And that is such an astounding revelation and realization, because that same thing happens today, where you've got so many black young people, men and young boys and girls, who have so much potential, but there's a system, there are people that will constantly try to limit them in what they aspire to be and what they set their sights on. And it's so sad, because you can see that like I said, this potential exists. And when this potential goes unrealized, it really is, it's not good. But one of the interesting things is, in Malcolm, in that time period, despite the discouragement, despite the fact that you had an entire system designed to break and destroy him, Malcolm showed that had he been an attorney, he would have just been one of the finest legal minds ever, because he still had that intelligence, he still had that sharpness, and he demonstrated it without the formal training, without the college education. He went to prison, read the dictionary, taught himself so much, and was able to demonstrate a super keen intellect that would just, I mean, he would run circles around the so-called greatest intellectuals of the time and esteemed professionals and minds and orators, and he just made them look like fools, because a lot of them were. And a lot of them were saying things that were just utterly and completely foolish, and he proved them to be the fools that they were. It actually leads me to another point that he actually realized, that in this system, that he recognized potential in other Black people that, had it been fostered, had it been nurtured, had it been cultivated, like they could have been they could have achieved such levels of success and greatness. It's like sad. It's so sad. And one of the individuals he mentioned was it West Indian Archie, who was a numbers runner and kept all the numbers in his head. So he would run numbers, and he had just the mind for numbers. And Malcolm says, I wonder if he had been, able to get the schooling, encouraged to go to school and college, what level of mathematician he could have become, because he had a head for numbers. He was just his abilities he had, but that just weren't realized. It was still made manifest in its way, but he could have been so much more. And I think he wound up dying of just, broke and drug addicted, which could have happened to Malcolm. But Malcolm turned his life around, in prison, got hooked up with the NOI, and refound that foundation in him that his father had instilled in him, and became focused and started to realize his potential. Because, I mean, you could see without the college degree, without the formal training, he just became a force of nature. And that's an inspiration to me personally, because I value intelligence, I value intellect, and seeing somebody that was able to achieve their potential, or even just a fraction, I mean, was still able to rise to such heights without going through conventional means and without being pushed by the powers that be. That inspires me to it doesn't matter what others say. It doesn't matter what the system wants for me. It's what I know I am capable of doing, and it's what I'm going to do. And that's a message I think that is just, that all of us could learn so much from and be inspired by. There's some of the things to talk about with Malcolm. But I do want to hit something else about because as much as I admire Malcolm, he was not perfect. And the funny thing is, even just saying he was not perfect, I still feel this like tinge of guilt sometimes saying that. And I shouldn't. He's a man. He's a man. But we oftentimes, when we have leaders, when we have people we admire, when we have heroes, we deify them. And that's dangerous, because men fall short. Men fall short all the time. And that actually was part of the one of his weaknesses, was that he deified another man, and that man fell short. And that disappointment caused such a rift, and I think had two things, because I don't put that just entirely on Malcolm. I also put that on Elijah Muhammad, because Elijah Muhammad had put himself in that position and wanted that position, but had he been humble enough to say, okay, you know what, the movement is bigger than me, then even if Malcolm leaving would not have caused the rift it would have, even if they weren't as close as they were, even if they didn't work together, it would not have resulted in just enmity between their two organizations. And then that would have been such a positive thing for Black people across the country. I mean, if you have the NOI over here doing its thing, if you have Malcolm X's organization over here doing its thing, and then they working with, whoever partners they have, because as Malcolm started working with other Black organizations, like the amounts of good it could have done for Black people as a whole, oh man, it's frustrating when I think about how close we were and how things fell apart. And it's why I say it's important for us not to continue to make those same mistakes today. So whenever it comes to a movement, never put a man above a movement, never deify a man. And remember, like I said, it's if there are individuals that are, that want to be, bigger than everything, that want to be worshipped, those are the kind of individuals I'm going to have to stay away from. Those are the individuals that could be the death of a movement and other individuals in the movement, because once ego gets involved, and people are starting to worry about their own self-importance rather than the advancement of the mission and the movement and the betterment of the people, it becomes a serious problem. There's so much to talk about Malcolm, and I will be talking about him some more, but I just wanted to reflect on some things about Malcolm that really mean so much and have an effect on my life, just in the modern day. Thank you for checking out this episode of Escaping the Echo Chamber. And as always, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you next episode.